Okay, welcome everybody again to Eastside Radio Cast TV. For today's show, we have
Jordy,
Sorandru,
Mr. Morelli,
Mr. Powell,
Mrs. Rivera.
Dino Caligari.
and I'm Mr. Rodriguez. Let's have a big round of applause for everybody here. Okay, now today's show is going to be based on buying real estate, and we feel that this show is important nowadays because if you haven't read the business, real estate has a low, including interest rates. So for today's show, we have a guest speaker, Dino Caligari, who's a mortgage broker. Let's have another round of applause for him. Now, for the first question I want to bring to, what are the steps to buying a house, and what should these students know to prepare for when it's time to buy a house?
All right, thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, and good morning, everybody. Just like Mr. Rodriguez said, I am in the mortgage business. I am an employee of Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. I've been doing this for about 27 years, and I'm from Patterson, right around this area, so I was like you kids and hoping to learn some things that you might learn today. So the question is real important about what are the steps to buying a house and what important things you need to know. And I'll say it this way. There are three very simple steps that each of you have to consider, whether it's lending to your friend or getting a loan from a bank. There's three things that are going to be income, credit, and assets. All right, income, credit, and assets are the three factors that you always have to consider. I'll give you a real simple example. If I need $100, or we'll say $10, and I'm short for the day, and I say, Mr. Rodriguez, can you lend me $10? He says, come see him in the afternoon. And throughout the day, he sees someone else who says, hey, Dino Caligari asked me for $10. And he goes, you know what, he asked me for $10 last week, but he never paid back. And then he meets somebody else who says the same thing, and another person says the same thing. Guess how my credit looks? When I come to see him in the afternoon, and I say, hey, can I borrow those $10 I asked you for, what do you think he's going to say? Probably going to say no. And why? That's right. He's going to say no because my history shows that I don't pay people back. So that's a real informal way of measuring credit, but there's a formal way of measuring credit, which is by credit reports. And those are the things that we use when we look up an individual's name. So if I look up Mr. Rodriguez's information or anyone on this panel or somebody who's over 18 in the audience maybe who has some sort of credit, then your credit history will appear and I'll be able to see if it's good credit, bad credit, mediocre, if there's something that can be cleaned up, if you can get better, etc. Number two is income. How much money you make and how will you pay back the money? If I'm going to pay him $10 a week for 10 weeks, I got to show him that I can make money to pay $10 a week. And then the third thing is, a bank is not going to give you 100% of the value of whatever you're purchasing, whether it's a car, a house, or any other asset. They're going to want to see that you have some skin in the game. You put your piece, we'll put our piece. Different programs require more of your piece, or what they call down payment. But there's still an investment that you guys have to make, or any homeowner has to make before the bank puts up the majority of the loan. Some people have the luxury of being able to buy cash, and that happens sometimes in the real estate market these days. A lot of people don't have the luxury, and if they do, they don't need the bank. They have the money set aside. But in most cases, when the bank is going to finance a house, then it's important that they show those three factors: income, assets, and credit. So remember those things, not only when you're ready to buy a house, but even in your
Okay, we want to formally introduce now our other panel, Ms. Gaines, principal of SYT. Let's hear it for her. Okay, so building on what Dino Caligari was saying, he was giving basic steps on what you should know in order to build credit. Now, what's been happening now in the news, are house prices at an all-time high or all-time low? Raise your hand if you know the answer.
All-time.
Okay, right, is that an all-time low? So now, what about interest rates? Whoever reads the business news, are they higher than they were 6-7 years ago, or are they lower? Interest rates? Okay, good guess. All right, it was actually low. So let's put two and two together. House prices are at an all-time low, and interest rates are at an all-time low, which means when you go to someone like Dino Caligari for a loan, you're actually going to be paying less for a mortgage for that same house if you bought it than if you bought it 10 years ago. Now, let's see, maybe we'll direct this question to Mr. Morelli. How is buying real estate a good way to do it?
Two major factors in renting a house versus purchasing a house. When you rent a house, 100% of your rent payment goes to a landlord. You receive no benefits for that money except having a roof over your head. When you leave that roof over your head, you walk away with nothing. When you own a house, there are two major ways that wealth is built. One is through a tax benefit, which is a tax deduction of the mortgage interest that you pay on the loan. As a result of that, you wind up paying less federal and state taxes each year until that loan is paid off. The other factor is appreciation on property. Under normal circumstances, in a normal economy, we have about 2.5% each year appreciation of the value of the house. So the combination of those two things builds your wealth up faster than if you were renting a house or if your money was in the stock market.
And I want to build on to his answer. Now, first of all, as he said, if you continually paying rent, this is your parents now, you're paying rent for years. You know, when you leave, we all know who's getting rich when you pay rent. The landlord. Okay, well, the landlord. Now, not only he said you get a tax benefit when you buy a house, but another way to create wealth also is, have you ever seen these fix-up shows? Yeah. Okay. Now, I don't know if anyone wants to elaborate on that, but there's other ways that, let's say if a house is worth $100,000, but now the owner is selling it for $80,000 because it needs a paint job and a little bit of work. And yet you happen to know some people who are handy. You can say, you know what, in today's market, this house is worth 100. He wants 80. I'm going to offer 70. And me and my friends might do it. That's called sweat equity. So let's say, hypothetically, you get it for 70. Someone like Dino give you 3%. If your credit is good, get to that point, right? At 3%, what's 3% of 70? 2,100, right? You will need 2,100 cash to buy the house. And once you get the house and you fix it, let's say, you know, paying, assuming again, there's pros and cons associated with that, $50. Now let's say you have taxes of about $7,000, let's say $7,200, $350, or $600 a month. So that's $950 you're paying on a mortgage. If this is a two-family house, what are market rents for a two-bedroom nowadays? Raise your hand. What is it? Let's say a two-bedroom in I don't know, East 24th, East 25th. Okay, let's say $950. How much you just said the mortgage might be? You said $350, right? $350. Adding the tax of $600, that your mortgage will be $950. So if you have a two-family house and you collect the $950 from the second floor tenant, how much are you paying towards the house? It's simple math. If your mortgage is $950 and you collect the $950 from the second floor, how much are you paying? How much is coming from your pocket? Zero. Okay, so that's another great way how to build up from there.
Let me put some context around what we're saying here, particularly for my class, because we've begun talking about how to accumulate wealth, and we defined a little bit about what wealth is, right? The things you own versus the things that you owe, right? And that gives you a net worth. Real estate is a way you can increase your net worth, because eventually that house will be something that you what? Own. Just as that car you're going to buy is something that you own. And that's why in our class we said to you, start saving and investing your money early, right? So that when you do decide that it's time to leave mom and dad, or aunt and grandma, you have a way of thinking about how to best use your money. And buying real estate is a way you can do it. Now, we're getting into excruciating detail about how much money you're going to make and how much you got to pay. That's a little premature for what I need you to get out of this now. What I need you to get out of this now is that you can get a home by the time you reach age 25. That is a goal. We talk about goals, right? In my class, we talk about goals. That's a reasonable goal that right now, where you sit now, you can prepare to get and to attain. The other thing is that we said start saving early, and when you do your budgeting, you're going to make sure you take a piece of your budget for you. Remember, we said that saving for yourself as a fixed asset, right? And we're talking about assets again, right? So when you're looking for a home, or when you're looking to stay in your apartment, understand that if you have saved early, the probability in you getting a home will be great. What Mr. Rodriguez is saying is that now, right now, you may know, or your family may know, or may be ready to buy a home. If they are ready to buy a home, they need to look into the market now. If you know you've got an aunt or an uncle or a grandma or mom and dad that's saving and they're paying rent to somebody else, maybe suggest to them that they need to pay rent to who? Themselves, right? And then you can see the mechanism of buying a house. And this is what Mr. Rodriguez is saying. Don't buy one single family house, buy a two-family house so that you can charge rent to pay for the mortgage. You know, we don't need to know what the numbers are, but that makes sense. You understand what I'm saying?
Can I add on to that? Now, it's funny because people I speak to, I'm sure you've heard, or maybe you've heard, oh, I don't want a two-family, I can't live with someone above me. Or, you know, there's always risk. People are afraid of risk. They say, I don't want to buy my own house because something goes, then I have to pay for it. Like as any investment, whether it's stock or a business you want to get into, everything has risk and reward. The key is to minimize the risk as much as possible and gain as much reward. That's what it is. But there's hardly anything that's out there with zero risk. If not, everyone would do it. But as far as buying a house, it's not. Now, does anyone want to elaborate? Like as far as being a homeowner, like what are the biggest expenses that they might get into? Ms. Rivera? Well,
I mean, I have, I was telling my students that I own 2 homes and I have, it's actually with Wells Fargo, so, right? But I think one of our biggest expenses is when we initially bought our house, we did a lot of cosmetic work to our house when it came to like the front of the house, how the face of the house looks and stuff like that. But I guess one of the things that you definitely want to, like what Mr. Palm was saying, we're actually in the same lessons, but we just, I guess we both use different terminology. What we were saying, remember guys, when we were saying about pay yourself first? Even when that's just for now, but even in the future when you start working and investing, the first thing you want to do is take money out for yourself and put that to the side. And as a homeowner, it's extremely important that you do that because if something goes bad or something breaks and you have something wrong with your plumbing or electricity or your roof starts to leak, you want to make sure that you're able to use that money, like pay your first money as you save in your class, to be able to fix the major things that can go wrong with owning a home.
and to elaborate on that, usually the major thing is a roof and the boiler. A boiler is about $3,500. Let's say a roof, you might get about, let's say, worst case scenario, $6 grand, somewhere around there. But in the first scenario, the example I gave you, where you collected $950, how much are you coming out of pocket? Zero, right? So if you take that same $950 you would have been paying rent, you can just put it away, and God forbid a boiler goes, that's 3 months worth of rent. See what I mean? You know, you pay that. So the point is, it's not as much as you think. Like, so if you're coming out of pocket $0, that extra money you would have been paying rent, you put it away. And you might, you know, you have to repair a roof or a boiler. And these are things, if you get the right person, always do your research. It'll last you another 15 years. Anyone want to add on to that?
Yes. I'm going to just put it in perspective as far as your education is concerned. And we often wonder, what's the importance of your education and the job that you can get based on the education that you have? In order to even get started in real estate, you have to show income. The higher your income, the more of a house value you can qualify for. And the only other thing we have to factor into that, of course, are the debts that you already have. So you're going to school, you're getting a good job. All of that ties into what kind of house you can qualify for. Any real estate investment, whether it be a one-family or two-family, should be beneficial to you. Because if it's a one-family where you don't get the income like Mr. Rodriguez spoke about, you still are building up what we call equity. The equity in the house comes when you get ready to sell it. Bought it for $100,000, value went up, assuming the economy is good. You sell it for $120,000, you make $20,000. That's equity. On a two-family house, you may be accelerating that faster because you have someone helping you pay the mortgage. But all of that is relative to what kind of job you have, the money that you save, and how much you're going to work to make sure that you maintain your property too. Often we get houses and we don't understand that we have to pour into the house and keep it at a certain level. If you need to replace some of the windows or get aluminum siding, or two things that really sell a house more than anything else is how that kitchen and that bathroom looks. People love a beautiful kitchen and they love nice bathrooms. So when you're successful and you get to that point, you want to remember what increases the value of your real estate. And those two things would be the two things that do that. My initial investments weren't in the best areas because my first investment came as soon as I got out of college. And my first investment was on Warren Street right by School 10th, if any of you live in that area. That's where I bought my first house. But within 7 years, I paid $35,000. Within 7 years, I was able to sell it for $100,000. That's when we were in a good market. So I made $70,000 on my first house. I didn't go looking for the best area because my income, my first job, wouldn't take me into the very best area. But I went making that investment where I could afford, kept my house up, and I sold my first house, and that's the kind of income I got. And as a result of that, I began to move up. Then I went to the next best area. Then I went to the next best area. But that's how you do it. You gotta always be willing to keep moving too. Some of us get a house and we feel we're gonna stay there forever. But if you wanna make your money work for you, you wanna keep it in good shape, sell, invest in the next one, and then I guarantee you will become financially sound. Most individuals that are financially sound, they have a lot of money, they're doing well. Most of them, I would say 90% of them will tell you they have some kind of real estate investment in their portfolio. So I'm definitely sold on real estate.
Okay, great. Now, there's a lot of great information from Ms. Gaines. Does anyone on the panel has any questions? Right?
As students, how can we start building our credit?
So the question is, what do you guys need to do as students, or even, older people, not just students, but anyone? How do you build credit? And I'll tell you from the mortgage side, there's two types of credit that we look at. There's formal credit, which is what appears in your credit report and what banks give you, and then there's non-formal credit. So the informal credit, each of you has the opportunity to build that. And that's basically showing a history that you're making payments, usually on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. You're paying on time, you're paying what you owe, and you've paid over a prolonged period, maybe a year. So there's some examples of things that people pay every single month but doesn't show up on their credit report. I mean, I don't know if anybody has any ideas of what those things are, but anybody have any notion of what people pay on a monthly basis? Telephone bill, beautiful. Almost everybody has cell phone these days. So that's number one. What else? Cable TV. Rent. PSE&G in this area, right? Light. Those are 4 great examples of things that people pay every single month. However, they don't appear on your credit report unless you're late. If you're late, it goes into collection, and those companies will put in a credit report to force you to pay, or at least to blemish your credit report. But if you show evidence that you pay those things on time for a prolonged period, usually a year, then that's very valuable. So my recommendation is, if you're going to pay those things, try not to pay it in cash and keep records of it. You pay either with money order or checks and keep copies of it, so that when it comes time to get formal credit, it's easier for the lender to approve you for that credit. The other type of credit is the formal credit. Credit cards, personal loans, car loans, things like that. And even in that formal credit, there's 2 types of credit. There's revolving credit and installment credit. Installment is anything that you have that has a definite ending period, like a car loan. You take a 3-year loan, when you're done, it's done. It goes away, it doesn't reappear. And there's revolving credit, like a credit card. You pay a credit card bill, you use it comes up, comes down, depending on how your usage is and how much you pay. Those things need to be paid on time. Now, keep this in mind, it's really important. Everything that you pay, everything that you owe has a minimum due. Whether it's $10 or $50, whatever it is, it's important that you pay at least the minimum due every single month. Some people have the notion, well, I'll just pay $50 this month, I'll skip next month and catch up the following month. That's terrible because it hurts your credit. Pay what you're, at least the minimum that you have to pay on time. Now, it's hard for somebody who's brand new to get credit, so one of the tools or tips that you can use is try to establish a secured credit card. Many banks have opportunities for you to get approved for a credit card if you have a small account. $100, $200 in a bank account. Maybe they'll give you a credit card for $100 or $200 that is secured by the asset, the money that you have in the bank. Another way to do it is to partner with someone, usually a family member, who may already have established credit, and have them add you as an authorized user. That's very dangerous for them because to add someone who doesn't have established credit is putting their credit at risk, especially if you guys go crazy making a lot of purchases and not paying it back. Then they're responsible. Do you have a question?
So, you know how you said that your parents or family member will help you establish your credit? So if you don't pay, if your family member has to pay for whatever you're doing?
When you make a contract with a lender as an authorized user or a joint borrower on any type of loan, both people or three people who are on that contract are equally responsible for making the payment. So yes, the answer is if I add my daughter to my account and she buys $1,000 worth of clothes and then she will pay it back, she's responsible for it, but so am I. And if we fail our payments, her credit will be damaged, but mine will too. So it's like a double hit. Everyone is responsible, whoever signs that contract. So you have to be very careful. Now, as students who are maybe want to be added on to someone who has established credit as an authorized user, or maybe down the road where you yourself have established credit and you're thinking about adding someone on your accounts as an authorized user, you have to be very careful with who you select and how you partner that up.
Can I just add something? Build on to what you're saying. Sure. Adding someone on, as he said, is very risky. You do not co-sign for someone as you know them very, very well. Now, going on top of that, let's say you know the person very well, brother, sister, whatever, and let's say for house buying, and let's say a certain person only qualifies for a $50,000 home. How can they work with as far as co-signing? So, let's say, okay, for example, let's say you see this house that's $100,000. Yet when you ran your credit and your income is low, you only qualify for $50,000. However, if your sister makes the same thing, can they do that?
Sure. So partnering works in many ways, and having joint buyers purchase one house works beautifully. But a person cannot add another person if they don't have credit. So if my credit is terrible, and Mr. Rodriguez has excellent credit, I can't say partner with me and co-sign with me because the bank is going to look at my credit. His credit cannot fix my credit. His income can add to my income, so that'll help. But when it comes to credit, a person who has good credit will not erase a person who has bad credit. So joint borrowers work when you're trying to achieve a higher income.
Great. Now, any other questions from Jordy?
What are things I should know when looking for a house?
One of the first things that I've always looked for is looking in your own backyard. A lot of times the streets that you walk down, the neighborhoods that you know, the border of the house that you walk past, that could be your first investment. And a lot of people wind up looking out of the area, forget that sometimes right in their own backyard can be some of the best opportunity. You also know the neighborhoods, you know the streets, and the people that the benefit has to go in some place where you don't have.
You can add on top of that, it's funny, my brother-in-law, his first house, he bought it with my sister, and they were asking for $145. This was years ago, back in 1999, but people kept turning away. They couldn't even get through the front door. The reason is, there was an elderly lady who couldn't walk, and she was using, soiling the whole carpet. And there was a bad smell. They had cats in there. No one wanted to go in. When he went there, he said, you know what? I'll offer you $90,000. That's the most we'll do. This is 1999. The realtor said, there's no way they're going to take less than 100. He said that try it because, that's the most we'll offer. Guess what? They took the offer because no one wanted to go to the front door. Once he bought the house, then he just got his crew in there. Okay, the lady, I guess she had passed away by the time. They cleaned it up. Maybe it cost about $10,000. Maybe a little less than that. And it was a brand new house. It smelled like potpourri when you walked in. You know what I mean? So some things that scare certain people away, don't go, you know, you do your own research. Well, you know what? If someone has cats and dogs, okay, fine. You can rip that carpet out. It's calculated how much it'll cost. So you know what I mean? So many times, that's how people make money, am I right, Ronald? They'll see, the worse it is, the better for investors. They'll pay low. They know it takes a couple of dollars to fix it up, and they'll sell at a higher price.
To add to that, the number one factor on how fast the value of your real estate can grow is the location. So if you have a choice between a not so good location and a good location, then you should opt for the better location because your value grows faster in a better location. There's also a direct correlation between a town that has a good school system and a town that's not. You find a town whose schools are rated really high, then you'll find high real estate values. A lot of people don't know that, but individuals looking for a home that's going to grow in value will first go to the multiple listing services and realtors and say, how are the schools? Because most families want to put their children in areas where the schools are good and they don't have to pay for schools. So there is a direct link between the value of the real estate and the quality of the school in that area.
If I could just piggyback off of what Mr. Morelli said, in regards to looking for homes in your neighborhood that are boarded up, there is one thing that you guys definitely have to keep in the back of your head is homes are foreclosed. Normally when you go and buy these homes that are foreclosed, you are pretty much, correct me if I'm wrong, buying these homes as is, and you can't, you won't know what the prompt of the house is until you actually sign on the dotted line and the house belongs to you. My second home, I actually purchased it was at a short sale. But with the short sales, also correct me if I'm wrong, you are able to go into the house, have an inspection of the house to see what's wrong with the house prior to you initiating or signing on the dotted line. So you just want to make sure that you know what you're getting into when you see a boarded up home. If you can just explain to me maybe the difference between a short sale and a foreclosed home, just so that they have an idea of what that is.
Sure. I can explain what a short sale is first. So a short sale is when a person is selling a home that is worth less than what they actually owe on the mortgage. So that happened a lot. Mr. Rodriguez referred to it before that the prices of homes were at its peak about 10 years ago. At the end of 2005, the housing market hit its peak. Since that time, the housing prices have dropped like a rock. They've stabilized in the last couple of years, but they went down very quickly. So a lot of people that bought their houses in 2005 and 2006 bought at a price, in some cases, that is twice as much as what it is worth today. So today, when they're no longer wanting to live in that house or have no use for that house or maybe can't afford that house payment anymore, they want to sell it. But the problem is that maybe they bought at $300,000 and the house today might be worth $150,000 and their mortgage might be $250,000 or $200,000 or anything over $150,000. So the money that they get from the sale is not going to be enough even to cancel the balance of what they owe on the mortgage. So they have to get permission from the bank where they have a mortgage to sell at a loss. The bank absorbs the loss. The person is freed from the obligation of paying the mortgage, and that's called a short sale. A foreclosure is a little bit different. It's kind of along the same path because usually the homeowner is struggling to make the payments. But they struggle so much that at some point the bank says, you know what, you're not paying anymore. If it's a renter and a landlord, they get evicted. If it's a homeowner and a bank that holds a mortgage, they get foreclosed. So the bank will go through the legal process of taking that house away for lack of payment of the mortgage. And then the bank becomes the owner, and then the bank sells the homes to whoever they can. That's it.
Can I just add something on what Rivera here was saying? Now, also with the foreclosed home, as she said, if you sign on the dotted line, it's yours. However, with any purchase, you always have an attorney review. You have time to back out of it. So if you see a good deal, you say, you know, that's a good deal, you sign on it, and then you can get a home inspector. you get a professional home inspector, they'll see things that you don't see. So they'll, after you get the home inspection report, you say, oh my God, you know what, there's too many repairs. You ask your uncle or someone who knows, you know what, this might be too many, it might be this much. You know what I mean? Then you could always back out. So that's always your way to back out with the home inspection.
That only is true for the first 3 days of a transaction. So if you sign today, you have 3 business days to reconsider that transaction, unless your legal representation, usually an attorney, asks for more time. So there's a period that it ends at.
With the home inspection, I think you could, if something comes back on, right? Like
That's a negotiable time. Yeah, you
negotiable.
can
Okay.
negotiate that.
I see we learned something too. All right, great. On that note, let's close this out. Let's give a big round of applause. Okay, for Eastside Radio and Cast TV, for this musical segment, we're going to take it back, a little old school hip hop. And I'm going to start off with some rap songs. I'm going to throw a little positivity. But this song here was what everyone wants to do, get paid in full. But we have to do it the legal way.
Yo, Rakim, what's up? Yo, I'm doing the knowledge, E, man. I'm trying to get paid in full. Well, check this out. Since Norby Waltz is our agency, right? True. Karen Lewis is our agent. Yo, Rakim, what's up? Yo, I'm doing the knowledge. Yo, Rakim, what's up? Ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands, so I dig into my pocket, all my money spent, so I can default, but still coming up with lint. So I start a mission, leave the residence, thinking how I could have get some dead presidents. I need money. I used to be a stick-up kid, so I think of all the devious things I did. I used to roll up. This is a whole up. Ain't nothing funny stop.
Recruiting suckers, macking, micing, making men of them. Tears and fears for my peers. They risen. You think that it is. If not, it isn't. Race for the border, my daughter could be to banging out. Cheeks rocking beats in the streets and they devil hanging out. Gather or rather form a circle loud out loud. Just the brothers or others could never ever rock a crowd. Yeah. One for all. It's all for one. I hear it.
We're just making it. Where's the class of 2015 at? Make some noise. Okay, who in the house? Where the freshmen at? Oh, you don't want to raise your hand. Sophomore. Junior. Seniors, where you at?
Another summer. Sound of the funky drummer. Bringing my step to all the place on the house. That beat. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Okay, it's a positive song, all about positivity.
You act like you ain't him, make it from a little trance. It began. How you think you really gon' pretend? Like you wasn't down and you called him again. Plus when you give it up so easy, you ain't even fooling him. If you did it then you probably can. Talking out your neck saying you're a Christian, a Muslim, sleeping with the gin. Now that was the sin that did Jezebel in. Who you know now when the real friend is only human? You don't think I haven't been through the same predicament? Let it sit inside your head like a million women in Philly pen. It's silly when girls sell their souls because it's sin. Look at where you be in. Hair weaves like Europeans. Fake nails done by Koreans. Come again. Yeah. Win, come again. Win, come again. My friend, come again.
Just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I.
Okay guys, we're gonna end it with this one here. Until Eastside Radio and Cast TV, until the next time, we're out. And we're gonna have a guest, remember, any guest DJs, let me know. So we're gonna be doing this at least every 2 weeks. Okay? God bless.